Hello, you beautiful people. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about some popular trade questions in fantasy basketball, and at the time I'm recording this, it's currently week 8 of the NBA season. So I'm going to give my recommendations on whether I think you should trade these players or if you should keep them, and I'm also going to say whether I think the trade will be better for the short or the long term. So, before we begin, feel free to like and subscribe for NBA and fantasy content, and I also have a Discord for the serious fantasy players if you guys want to discuss any fantasy or NBA stuff, so that link's going to be in the description. There's a really great community in there, and that's where I got most of these player ideas from. They're also super helpful to talk if you want more trade or waiver advice, and I definitely recommend checking it out if you're interested. And with that being said, let's just start the video. So as always, we start with the player in the thumbnail, and it's going to be Paul George. And I think if Paul George is on your team, you should try to trade him away. So as we all know, he's out currently with an injury, and it's come out that it's a bone edema in his right toe. And while I don't know the complete logistics of the injury, I do know it's the same thing that Otto Porter had last season, which caused him to miss almost every single game. So I feel like best case for Paul George is he's out for the majority of the season, so you might as well take a chance and try to move him to some unsuspecting fantasy manager that isn't completely aware of the situation, because even if it's best case, he's going to be missing an extended period of time, and you might as well get as much value as you can for him. So yeah, I also would try to avoid trading for Paul George. I've seen a lot of people getting offered trades for him, and it's obviously for the same reason, because people know that he's hurt and he's going to be out for a long time, so just be wary if someone's offering him to you, and if he is on your team, I'd definitely try to move him. And with that being said, let's just move on to the next player. So next up is going to be Malcolm Brogdon, and he's a player that, if you're not aware of, this is the definition of a buy low player. So if you have him on your team, I definitely would not try to trade him away just because he's been underperforming for the past 4 games, because that is not a large enough sample size to think that this is something that's going to stay. And he's been such a consistent performer all season. He's such a smart player that I don't think there's any way he doesn't bounce back. He already sort of bounced back to his old self in his last game, so I would not trade Malcolm Brogdon if he's on your team, just because you're not going to get great value in return for him, and people are sort of panic selling him right now, so if you can acquire Malcolm Brogdon, I'd definitely try to do so, but just be aware, his numbers are going to increase back to what they were at the start of the season, and yeah, he's just a really solid, really efficient player, and I really like Malcolm Brogdon for fantasy, so I don't understand why everyone's panicking after he has 3 bad games, but you should definitely try to take advantage of that if you can, and yeah, let's just move on to the next player. So moving on to Jerami Grant, this is another player that I wouldn't recommend trading if he's on your team, and it's just because he had 1 bad game, and I feel with Jerami Grant, it's just since he's new to being an all-star level player, people are so quick to just throw caution to the wind as soon as he has a bad game, and they just see that as a sign that he's going to regress back to what he was like the season before, and I just don't think that's the case with Grant. I mean, I think he's solidified himself as a really good player in this league, and I don't think you should panic trade him just because he has the occasional bad game. Overall, he's a really solid fantasy performer, and I feel if you were to trade him, you just wouldn't get as good value for him as you should. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing with most players that just all of a sudden become good or just have a really big leap, is that people are hesitant to trade for them, and people are hesitant to have them on their team just because they don't trust the production. But I feel it's been long enough now that I trust Jerami Grant's production, and I definitely wouldn't recommend trading him if he's on your team. If someone was trying to trade him away, I would try to take advantage of that, because you won't have to give up as much as you would if it was someone that's a similar level like Brandon Ingram, just because he's a more well-known name. So if someone is trying to trade away Jerami Grant, just try to lowball them a little bit, just because you might be able to get away with it. And yeah, that's going to do it for Jerami Grant. So next up we have another Pacer player, and it's actually going to be Miles Turner. And this is another player that was performing consistently all season, and then he had 2 duds of games where he only scored 3 points and didn't do much on the rebounding or the block front, and people were just quick to be oh, well, this is it for Miles Turner, and I just feel you have to give him more of a shot than that. I mean, he is playing a good amount of minutes. He's definitely taken a leap this year in terms of his fantasy production due to the amount of blocks he's getting, and while it isn't going to stay at 5 a game, he's still going to be the league's leader in shot blocking, so definitely helps for category leagues as well. And I feel if you were to trade Miles Turner right now, you just wouldn't be getting great value for him just because of those 2 dud games. And I feel for the most part, he's been pretty consistent, and I wouldn't definitely I would try not to just freak out over those rare occurrences and just focus on what he's been doing for the majority of the season. So yeah, if someone is trying to trade Miles Turner, it's a similar case for Jerami Grant. You might be able to lowball them just because he has gotten a lot better this year. So I would try to take advantage of that if you could, if it doesn't cost you too much. And if he is on your team, I definitely try to be careful about trading him just because someone might be trying to buy low from you, but if you get an offer and you feel it's significant recompensation, then I'd just go ahead and take it, but just make sure someone's not buying low off of your team, and yeah, that's going to do it for Miles Turner. And lastly, you already know, if you made it this far into the video, drop a W in the comments so I know who the non-casuals are. Really appreciate you guys watching all the videos, And yeah, with that being said, the last player on the list is going to be DeAngelo Russell, and he's someone I wouldn't recommend trading if he's on your team, just because the thing with D'Lo is just like the majority of his game is run through the pick and roll, and if he doesn't have a good partner on that end, then he really just can't be that effective. And now that Towns is out, I mean, he missed quite a few games this season with injury and then Rona issues. It's just like with him back, that really unlocks D'Lo's game, and I feel like his numbers are just going to increase steadily, and if you were to trade him right now, it would just be a buy low target from someone else. So yeah, I'm expecting a big jump in D'Lo's numbers, especially his efficiency now that Towns is out, just because he's going to get a lot of easier looks as he's so good at operating in the pick and roll. So yeah, that's going to conclude the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any trade questions, leave them down below, or like I said, join the Discord and me or someone else will be happy to answer them. And yeah, hope you guys all have a great day, and peace.